HOA sued disabled veteran for $250,000 over a flagpole in his yard. I never thought I'd end up in a legal battle over something as simple as flying the American flag in my own front yard, but here we are. My name's Oliver, and I served in the Marines for 12 years before an I.E.D. in Afghanistan left me with a traumatic brain injury and partial hearing loss. Coming home wasn't easy, but I managed to build a new life, buying a modest house in what seemed like a nice suburban neighborhood in Virginia. The trouble started 3 months ago when I decided to install a proper 20-foot flagpole in my front yard. I'd always had a flag mounted on my porch, but after attending a fellow veteran's funeral, I felt inspired to do something more meaningful. That flagpole became my weekend project, something to focus on besides the constant ringing in my ears and the memories that sometimes keep me up at night. I did everything by the book. Called Miss Utility to mark underground lines, got a building permit from the county, and even hired a professional to make sure the concrete foundation was up to code. The pole went up on a Saturday, and I raised Old Glory with pride. My neighbor Tom, another vet, came over with a six-pack to celebrate. "Looks damn good, Oliver," he said, handing me a beer. "Reminds me of base." I should have known the piece wouldn't last. Monday morning, I found a notice from the Oakwood Hills Homeowners Association taped to my door. According to them, the flagpole violated community guidelines and needed to be removed immediately. I checked my HOA documents. There was nothing specifically prohibiting flagpoles. Just vague language about maintaining neighborhood aesthetics and getting approval for permanent structures. I wrote them a polite email explaining my situation and citing the Freedom to Display the American Flag Act of 2005, which prevents HOAs from prohibiting residents from displaying the American flag. I figured that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. A week later, I got a certified letter from some fancy law firm representing the HOA. They weren't just demanding I remove the flagpole, they were suing me for $250,000 in damages, claiming the unauthorized structure was decreasing property values and that I'd willfully violated HOA regulations. "This is insane," my sister Sophia said when I called her. She's a paralegal in Richmond. "They can't do this. It's clearly retaliatory, and they're violating federal law." But they were doing it. The lawsuit listed a bunch of ridiculous claims: visual pollution, creation of hazardous conditions, apparently they thought the pole might fall on someone, and my personal favorite, causing emotional distress to community members who are triggered by excessive displays of nationalism. I couldn't afford a big-shot lawyer, but I wasn't about to back down. Sophia helped me contact the local VFW, and they put me in touch with James Martinez, an attorney who specializes in property rights and veterans issues. He took my case pro bono. "This is exactly the kind of bureaucratic bullying I can't stand," James said during our first meeting. "These HOA board members think they're running their own little kingdom. Time to remind them they're still in America." The HOA board president, Karen Mitchell, yes, actually Karen, started a whisper campaign against me. Suddenly, neighbors who used to wave were avoiding eye contact. I found nasty notes in my mailbox calling me a troublemaker and attention seeker. Someone even called code enforcement about my service dog William, claiming he was aggressive, which was laughable considering he's a lazy lab who's afraid of squirrels. But not everyone turned against me. Tom stood by my side, and other veterans in the community started speaking up. The local news got wind of the story, and suddenly my quiet battle with the HOA was making headlines. HOA sues disabled veteran over American flag display. The social media response was overwhelming. People started driving by just to take pictures with my flagpole. Veterans groups organized a peaceful protest outside the HOA office. My story got picked up by national news outlets, and I even got a call from a senator's office offering support. The HOA's lawyer tried to intimidate me with mountains of paperwork and technical legal arguments. But James was ready for them. He filed a countersuit citing the Freedom to Display the American Flag Act, the Fair Housing Act, arguing they were discriminating against me as a disabled veteran, and several state laws protecting homeowners' rights. During discovery, James uncovered something interesting: emails between board members showing they'd been selectively enforcing regulations. Other homeowners had similar unauthorized structures, like pergolas and basketball hoops, but the board had ignored those. One email from Karen specifically mentioned making an example of me because my military service doesn't entitle special treatment. The turning point came during mediation. Karen and the other board members showed up expecting to steamroll us into submission. Instead, James presented them with evidence of their selective enforcement and discriminatory practices. He also had statements from real estate agents confirming that properly maintained flagpoles typically have zero impact on property values. Your clients have two options, James told their lawyer. They can drop this lawsuit and issue a public apology, or we can take this to trial. I'm sure a jury would love to hear about how you're persecuting a disabled veteran for displaying the American flag. The color drained from Karen's face. Their lawyer asked for a break to consult with his clients. 20 minutes later, they came back ready to deal. The settlement was more than I could have hoped for. They had to: 1. Drop all claims against me. 2. Issue a formal apology. 3. Pay my legal costs. 4. Revise the HOA bylaws to explicitly protect residents' rights to display the American flag. 5. Require the entire board to attend fair housing training. 6. Make a $50,000 donation to a veterans support organization. The best part? The entire board resigned within a month. The new board, which includes 2 veterans and a civil rights lawyer, has been much more reasonable. Word spread through the HOA community nationwide. I've gotten hundreds of messages from other homeowners fighting similar battles, and James has been helping them pro bono. Several states are now considering legislation to further limit HOA powers and protect homeowners' rights. As for my flagpole, it's still standing proud. Every morning, I raise the flag while William sits patiently beside me. Sometimes Tom joins us, and we share a quiet moment remembering the friends who never made it home. Other neighbors have started putting up flags too, proper ones, on real poles, not just those little decorative ones from Home Depot. Last week, a young girl stopped her bike in front of my house while I was tending to my flower beds. She looked up at the flag, then at me. "My teacher says that flag means freedom," she said. I smiled. "That's right. And sometimes you have to fight to keep that freedom, even in your own front yard." Karen still lives in the neighborhood, but she crosses the street when she sees me coming. That's fine by me. The flag looks better from a distance anyway. The whole experience taught me something important. The rights we fought for overseas, they don't mean much if we're not willing to defend them here at home too. Sometimes the battles that matter most aren't fought with weapons, but with words, laws, and the courage to stand up for what's right. My flagpole has become something of a landmark in the neighborhood. Veterans Day last year, dozens of people gathered in my front yard for an informal ceremony. Even the mayor showed up. We raised the flag, said the Pledge of Allegiance, and had a barbecue afterward. Looking around at all those people, veterans and civilians, young and old, from all different backgrounds, I felt proud. Not just of my service or winning the lawsuit, but of showing people that some things are worth fighting for. The HOA's lawyer later admitted they never expected such pushback. They thought I'd cave under the pressure of potentially losing my home. What they didn't understand was that the flag represented something bigger than just decoration or property rights. It represented every friend I lost overseas, every sacrifice made by service members and their families, and the principles that make America worth fighting for. These days, I mentor other veterans dealing with similar situations. Last month, I testified before the state legislature about HOA reform. The bill they're considering would put strict limits on HOA powers and provide special protections for veterans and other protected classes. They're calling it the Freedom to Display Act, though some folks have nicknamed it Oliver's Law. Sophia jokes that I should run for office, but I'm happy just tending my garden and helping others when I can. William keeps me company, and the flagpole stands tall, a daily reminder that sometimes the most important victories are won right here at home. The lawsuit cost the HOA more than just money. It cost them their reputation and credibility. The story became a cautionary tale for other HOAs about the dangers of overreach and discrimination. Several property management companies now use my case as a training example of what not to do. Looking back, I'm almost grateful for Karen and her crusade against my flagpole. She inadvertently helped create positive change that's benefiting homeowners across the country. Sometimes it takes someone trying to strip away your rights to remind people why those rights matter in the first place. This morning, like every morning, I raised the flag while William sat at attention beside me. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky in reds and golds. A few neighbors waved as they walked their dogs or headed to work. Tom came over with coffee, and we spent a few minutes just watching the flag wave in the breeze. "You know what, Oliver?" he said. "That pole's not just holding up a flag anymore. It's holding up a reminder." "A reminder of what?" I asked, though I knew what he meant. "That some fights are worth having, even when they seem small, especially when they seem small." I nodded, thinking about all the changes that had come from this small fight. The reformed HOA, the new state legislation, the veterans who've found their voice, the neighbors who've become friends. Sometimes the biggest victories start with simply standing your ground. The flag above us snapped in the wind, and William perked up his ears at the sound. Another day in the land of the free, where even the right to fly a flag sometimes needs defending. But that's okay. After all, defending freedom is what we do best. And my flagpole? It's not going anywhere. Neither am I. Some things are just worth fighting for. Update: 2 years later. A lot has changed since my battle with the HOA, and I wanted to share how things turned out. The story didn't end with the settlement. It was just the beginning of something bigger than I could have imagined. Remember Karen, the former HOA president? Well, she tried to make a comeback 6 months after the settlement. She and her remaining supporters attempted to call a special election to replace the new board, claiming they weren't protecting property values because they were too lenient about home modifications. "Here we go again," Tom said when we got the notice about the special meeting. "Some people just don't learn." But this time we were ready. James, my lawyer, had helped us set up a homeowners' rights committee. We'd been documenting everything. Property values had actually gone up 12% since the new board took over. Complaint resolution times were down 60%, and community satisfaction surveys showed record-high approval ratings. At the special meeting, Karen stood up with her usual condescending smile. "While some of you may enjoy the chaos of unrestricted property rights, many of us are concerned about maintaining standards." That's when our new board president, Jennifer, a retired civil rights lawyer, pulled out the quarterly financial reports. She showed how the old board had wasted over $180,000 on frivolous legal actions in the past 5 years, while the new board had cut administrative costs by 40% and increased the community maintenance budget. "Standards aren't about controlling your neighbors," Jennifer said. "They're about maintaining our community responsibly and respecting each other's rights." Karen's motion for a special election failed spectacularly. 82% voted against it. She put her house up for sale the next week. Last I heard, she moved to a condo with no HOA. Ironic, right? But the real changes came at the state level. Remember that Freedom to Display Act I testified about? It passed unanimously. The law now requires all HOAs in our state to protect homeowners' rights to display the American flag, provide clear, specific guidelines for property modifications, handle complaints through a standardized process, maintain transparent financial records, undergo annual fair housing training. The governor invited me to the signing ceremony. As I stood there watching him sign the bill into law, I thought about all the veterans and homeowners who would benefit from these changes. This law ensures that no homeowner will face discrimination or harassment for expressing their patriotism, the governor said. And we have Oliver here to thank for bringing this issue to light. My story even caught the attention of Congress. I was asked to testify before a House committee about HOA reform. Walking into that hearing room was intimidating, but William was right beside me, calm as ever. "Mr. Mitchell," one representative asked, "what do you think is the biggest problem with HOA governance today?" "It's the abuse of power," I replied. "When HOAs forget they're meant to serve the community, not control it. We need balance between maintaining neighborhoods and respecting individual rights." That testimony helped shape a federal bill that's now making its way through Congress. It would create national standards for HOAs and protect homeowners from discriminatory practices. Back home, our community has become a model for other HOAs. We host quarterly town halls where residents can voice concerns and suggest improvements. The new board actually listens and takes action. We've started community projects like a Veterans Memorial Garden and a playground renovation, things the old board always said we couldn't afford. Last month, a reporter from the Washington Post came to do a follow-up story. She interviewed several neighbors about how things had changed. "It's not just about the flags anymore," my neighbor Susan told her. "It's about feeling like we have a voice in our community. Oliver showed us we could stand up for ourselves." The reporter asked me if I ever regretted taking on the HOA. "Not for a second," I said. "Sometimes you have to fight the small battles to prevent the bigger ones." The Veterans Support Organization that received the $50,000 donation from our settlement? They've used that money to help other vets facing similar situations. They created a legal defense fund and have already helped dozens of veterans protect their rights. James has become the go-to lawyer for HOA cases in our state. He's won several similar cases using our case as precedent. "Your flagpole case opened the floodgates," he told me recently. HOAs can't bully people like they used to. Tom and I still have our morning coffee by the flagpole. We've added a small paver patio with benches, and other vets often join us. It's become an unofficial meeting spot for our local VFW chapter. Last Veterans Day, we hosted an even bigger celebration than the year before. The community came together to dedicate the new Veterans Memorial Garden. The mayor presented me with a key to the city, but the real honor was seeing how many people came to support our veterans. "You know what's funny?" Tom said during the ceremony. "That flagpole they tried to tear down has brought more people together than anything else in this neighborhood's history." He was right. What started as one veteran's stand against HOA overreach had grown into a movement for positive change. Property values are up, community involvement is at an all-time high, and our HOA is now known for being fair and reasonable. Words I never thought I'd use to describe an HOA. Sophia still jokes about me running for office, but I've found my calling in advocacy work. I speak at HOA conferences about reform and work with veterans groups to protect homeowners' rights. It's not the life I expected after leaving the Marines, but it's meaningful work. William is getting older now, a little gray around the muzzle, but he still sits with me every morning when I raise the flag. Sometimes neighborhood kids stop by to pet him and ask about the flag. I tell them it's not just a piece of cloth on a pole, it's a reminder that standing up for what's right matters, even when it's not easy. The flagpole that caused so much trouble has become a symbol of positive change. Other neighborhoods have used our story as inspiration to reform their own HOAs. I get emails and letters from people across the country sharing similar experiences and asking for advice. Last week, I got a special letter. It was from a Marine currently serving in Afghanistan. He'd read about our story and wrote to say it gave him hope. "Knowing there are people back home fighting for what's right," he wrote, "makes our mission here feel more meaningful. Keep raising that flag high, sir." Every morning when I look up at that flag, I think about how one small stand for freedom led to so much positive change. The HOA tried to break my spirit with that lawsuit, but they ended up strengthening my resolve and bringing our community together. I've learned that sometimes the best way to honor the flag isn't just by raising it, it's by standing up for the principles it represents. Freedom, justice, the right to stand your ground when you know you're right. Karen's old house sold to a young military family. The wife is active duty Air Force, and her husband is a teacher. First thing they did? Put up their own flagpole. Karen would have had a fit, but these days it's just another part of what makes our neighborhood special. Our story has become part of the curriculum for HOA management certification in several states. They use it as a case study in how not to treat homeowners and how positive change can come from conflict if handled properly. Today, our neighborhood is stronger than ever. We've shown that standing up for your rights doesn't just help you, it can help your whole community. That $250,000 lawsuit meant to silence me? It ended up giving voice to thousands of homeowners across the country. As I write this final update, I'm sitting on my front porch with William. The flag above us moves gently in the breeze, and I can hear kids playing in the new playground down the street. Tom's talking with the new military family next door, probably sharing war stories and HOA battle tales. This morning, like every morning, I raised the flag with pride. But now it stands for something even more important than before. It's not just my victory anymore. It's a victory for everyone who's ever faced bullies and stood their ground. It's a reminder that positive change is possible when people stand together for what's right. The flagpole isn't going anywhere, neither am I, and neither is the change we've created together.